Hey guys, I hope you had a great spring break and were able to enjoy some time off from school. And I hope you're ready to dive right back into Cyrano. So today I want to go over the pages that you were to have read last, which was pages 389 to 394 to explain what happened in those pages. So this is Act 2. At the end of Act 1, remember Cyrano was going with his friend Linier, was going to make sure that he made it home safely because there were 100 men waiting to ambush him. And so he was afraid to go home. And Cyrano said, "Oh, I'll go home with you. I'll protect you." And remember, he was feeling just on top of the world, like he could take on all 100 men by himself. He told nobody to help him. Do you remember why? Because he had received a message from the duenna that Roxanne wanted to meet with him. So he helped Lanier get home, and that's what happens between Act 1 and Act 2. So Act 2, it's a new day, and we are at the pastry shop. Rationale's pastry shop. Remember, he's a pastry cook. And remember that the duenna and Roxanne were supposed to meet Cyrano there today after they went to Mass, and then they were supposed to meet there at the shop. So when it opens, we have Rationale, the pastry cook. He's there in his kitchen, and he's also trying to compose some poetry. He thinks he's a poet, and so he's trying to make up some poems there. And you'll see as Act 2 progresses that Cyrano's object, remember his main goal in his life? Do you remember what it was? It was to make himself admirable in all things. But as we go through Act 2, you're going to see that that is going to be tested by several different people. Be tested by Roxanne, by De Guiche, by Christian, even by Lebret, in different ways. Is he going to be able to keep that goal and make himself admirable in all things? So anyway, we have Rationale here, and he's trying to compose some poems, and then his wife comes in, and she brings some papers, like some paper for him to wrap the pastries in to sell them. And he's like, "Oh, good." And he looks at the papers, and then he realized she has brought in papers that he has written on. He's written poems on them. And he's like, "I don't want to use these. These are, ones that I've written poems on." Well, she just thinks the whole thing is ridiculous. Rajanel and all his friends, he has all these poet friends who they think they're poets too. And so they sit around and try to write poems. And she doesn't like it and doesn't think much of it. And she thinks that this is a better use for those pieces of paper to wrap the pastry in than for them to sit around and write poems. Well, then some little children come along and ask for some pastries. They say, "Can we have three little patties?" And so he says, "Sure, here you go." And the kids say, "Well, can you wrap them? Would you mind wrapping them?" So then he grabs the papers that his wife brought, and he's looking through them, and he's seeing the poems that he writes, like, "Oh no, that poem's too good. I don't want to wrap it in that one." And he's trying to find one that he would be okay with parting with. He finally finds one and he figures, "I guess I can wrap him in these." He wraps it, gives it to the children. When his wife turns her back, he says to the kids, he's like, "Psst, hey kids, if you give me that wrapping back, I'll give you more. I'll give you three more goodies." So, of course, the kids are going to trade a piece of paper for some more goodies. So they give it back to him. And so he gets back his poem. And even though he sees there's a spot of butter on it, but he has his poem back. Well, then Cyrano enters the scene. Cyrano walks in. He's like, "Hey, Reginald, what time is it?" He says, "Well, it's 6 o'clock." Cyrano's like, "Okay, I have one more hour." He's like, and so then Reginald's like, "Hey, I saw your victory. That was a pretty cool." And Cyrano's, "What victory are you talking about?" He's like, "Oh, at the hotel when he did. Remember when he was fencing, dueling with that guy, and he composed a poem on the spot while he was dueling, and everybody thought that was really cool and this big deal." And so, of course, Reginald liked that. And then his wife looks at Cyrano and notices his hand, and there's that is injured. And she's like, "What happened? What's wrong with your hand?" And Cyrano's like, "Oh no, it's nothing. It's nothing." And then Cyrano says to Rajanel, he's like, "Look, somebody's supposed to be meeting me here. So when they do, if you could please leave when they come." And Rajanel's like, "Well, I'm supposed to be meeting my poets. My poets are supposed to be coming here to meet me." And he's like, "Well, then just when they come, just take them away when I give you the sign when she comes." And then he's like, "Hey, do you have a pen?" So Rajanel gives him something to write with. So then Cyrano's like, "Okay, I'm going to just start writing down what I want to say to her. All these words that have been in my heart, I'm just going to write them down, and then I can just give her the letter, and everything that I've been feeling and wanting to say will be in that letter." So he starts to think about it. He says, "I'll write the letter that I've written into my heart many times, and I've torn it up many times in my heart. And maybe guys, maybe you can kind of understand what he's feeling, because he's afraid if he were to speak when he's face to face with her that he won't say things correctly, won't say what he wants to say. So he's like, I better write it down." So he gets out his pen and he starts writing. And that's where that scene ends. Writing and preparing, getting ready for her to come meet them. So you're going to pick up there for today. You're going to read page 394 through page 404. And in this scene, this is a scene where Roxanne is going to come to Cyrano and you're going to find out why she wanted to meet with him. She had something that she wanted to tell him, and you'll find out what it is that she wanted to tell him. So read pages 394 to 404, and then we will talk about them tomorrow.